hi. I'm Owlbear Rogue. Welcome to the cave. I've introduced you in the past to some dungeons, some magic items, whimsical NPCs. In this video, we're going to talk about villains. I love villains. I think everyone loves villains, or at least loves to hate them. When I was a kid, my favorite character was Maleficent. She had powerful magic, a great color scheme that goes a long way, a pet raven. She was a strong, independent woman, a property owner. She could turn into a dragon. And she had a habit of keeping good-looking people captive in her tower. I should maybe talk with my therapist about that last bit, but the point is, bad guys can be so good. The best thing about finding yourself a solid villain as a DM is once you figure out what they want and how they're going to try to get it, hey, you have an adventure. You just need to answer a few questions. Who is this villain? I find picking a cool name right from the get-go helps tell you who this character is going to be. What nefarious thing do they want? What plans have they put in place? What wicked gifts can you give your villain as a DM to help them towards their goal? Our NPCs are our children, after all, and no NPC is as important as your villain. How is your party going to begin to unravel their evil plans, and what is going to make them invested in stopping them? Here are three of my favorite baddies. I'm going to give them to you in order of the scale of threat they'll pose if you let them run amok in your world. The first villain is a creature I call Alun Azora. With Alun Azora, your players are not only going to be questioning who she is, but what she is. Some villains are meant to be the big bad of your campaigns, but you need smaller ones along the way. Alun Azora was once a very big bad, in another time, another place, another world, far away from the one your players are inhabiting. Think of her as a Strahd or a Vecna, once a legendary, dominating force unto herself, who, in the height of her power, was banished. I leave it up to the imagination by whom or what means. It's a question you can leave open or answer for yourself as a DM. This creature found herself suddenly, against her will, thrust into your world, the world your PCs are innocently exploring with their own agendas and quests. Could she become your new big bad? Sure. If you wanted to, she absolutely could be fleshed out and made into a whole campaign. But I like her as a smaller villain, one I surprise my players with in several different ways. What is Alun Azora? Other than a once staggeringly powerful being who's been thrust into a different reality, the violence of the struggle she went through before being banished into your world, robbing her of much of her power and almost all of her dignity. As far as her abilities, I take a vampire stat block, a powerful one, and I smash it together with a Medusa stat block. She's an undead, desperate, feral, capable of doing all the usual charming, biting, and turning herself into mist we expect from a good vampire, while also capable of turning your party to stone. She's a nasty one. What does Alun Azora want? In my world, she wants to get home. She's a husk of her old self here, and she wants to return to her former glory, take revenge on those who stole everything from her. She's been wandering your world for a long time, her fine clothes tattered, her mind scrambled. Perhaps she had some kind of special diet in her world that kept her powerful, but she can't find her favorite victims in your world. She's starving. I know that Alun Azora seems like a wonderful gothic villain, but to be honest, if I was running a gothic adventure, I wouldn't use her. Because one of the things I like to use her for as a DM is to shake up a long-running campaign. She's something of a tonal palate cleanser. When my players have been playing a certain kind of game in a certain kind of world, experiencing a certain kind of bad guy for a long time, I like to toss her into somewhere she's completely out of place. She's a little bit of sorbet before you go back to the steak buffet. When my players are exploring some far-flung, forgotten place, I put two things there. One is a crystal, a big one. With the right incantation, it's capable of powerful transportation magic. And right there with it, I put our gal, Elune. Elune, through painful effort trying any means necessary to return to her world, has found her way to this crystal. She doesn't belong in this place. She doesn't want to be there. She does not match the scenery. But she learned of the existence of this crystal, and she intends to use it. Problem is, there are runes around the crystal that one needs to understand to use it, and she's foreign to these parts. She hasn't been able to figure them out yet, and it has made her even more desperate and mad than she was before. When your party stumbles upon this situation, she'll either try to charm them into helping her unravel the runes, or maybe watch them from a distance, and once they've figured out how it works, then she'll attack. Of course, that counts on your folks not having the best perception. She has a lot of sneaky things, though, as a vampire. If she suspects your party might be useful, she could petrify your players and save them for later. Having that option allows me to use Elune Azora as a difficulty palette cleanser too. She's not just thematically different than what my players are expecting, but she's a lot more powerful than the enemies and challenges they're used to encountering. Throw her at a group you don't think is ready for her. If they manage to defeat her by the skin of their teeth, as our parties so often do, they will be shook up and very proud of themselves. If they're defeated, just have them get unpetrified at some point and deal with her in a sneakier way or bust out of there. I like to stick this scenario in at a point where I'm ready for the party to be able to travel around their world more quickly. If they play their cards right, they defeat Elune and wind up with a crystal that allows them to do just that. What gifts do I give Elune Azora as a DM? I give her intelligence, desperation. Mostly I just give her a nasty stat block. Petrification is one of those mechanics that if the party starts to fall to it, it's a real domino effect. Combine that with her undead powers, the ability to become incorporeal, to replenish herself with attacks. I love every strand of her ratty, stringy hair. I love her filthy clawed hands. She's in your world now, whether anyone likes it or not. See what havoc she might wreak there. Next, we have Rylnor, king of some kind of giants. When it comes to big bads, it's hard to get much bigger or badder than a giant. You have a creature capable of being clever, endlessly ambitious, brutally violent, and they're as tall as a giraffe, but with none of the herbivore charm. Add all that up and you've got Rylnor. Giants also live in a society, which means not only will your players have Rylnor to deal with, but potentially a whole army of giants with stat blocks almost as gnarly as his. You can give him as many enormous minions as you want. If you follow D&D lore, giant society exists within the structure of something called the Ordning. It's essentially a god's ordained pecking order that determines which giants are the most important and powerful. Generally speaking, you've got storm giants around the top and the not so bright hill giants down at the bottom. Whenever there's a stepladder power structure, it keeps everyone busy, doesn't it? Those at the top are constantly watching their back. Those further down, well, they might decide they have some climbing to do. That's why I would choose to make Rylnor the chief of the fire, or maybe the frost giants, maybe the stone giants, something in the middle. If something were to come along and shake up the ordning, you want a group that has a lot to gain and not as much to lose. I would personally make Rylnor the king of the fire giants. He's got a lot to be hungry for. Who is Rylnor? Well, I would make him relatively intelligent, pathologically prideful, power-hungry, and ambitious. He's fearless, single-minded, smart enough to put on a facade to the more powerful species of giant that he respects the traditions of giant kind, when in truth there is no oath he wouldn't break, no loyalty he wouldn't betray, no boundary he wouldn't cross. What does Rylnor want? Well, as we said, he wants to overthrow the ordning and place himself on top of it. This is classic. You can find a ton of D&D adventures around this idea. Great big bad giant stuff. How would I help him accomplish this as a DM? First, I would give him an alliance with some other ill-intentioned creature. He's going to need some kind of a distraction, something to keep the eyes and ears of all the other giants busy until it's time for him to strike. Give him some kind of accomplice with their own agenda. Maybe the whole thing was their idea and they've manipulated him, used his ambition as a tool to their own end. As far as your players are concerned, having him be a part of a big conspiracy can easily flesh this out from a single adventure to a whole campaign. It gives them something to figure out instead of just something to fight through. I think almost any game is made better by a bit of mystery to untangle, dangling threads to pull on. I would give Rylnor a deadly lair. Down in a volcano or something like that, someplace with natural dangers, intentional traps, and a horde of other giants with varying skills. I would give him slaves down there that might need to be rescued or could become allies to your party. Maybe there's a spirit that lives in this volcano. Is it on the giant's side, or could it perhaps become a very dangerous ally to your players if it doesn't feel so great about having Rylnor there? Of course, what Rylnor needs most is a plan, an evil plan. Ideally, for your purposes, and this really goes for all your villains, this plan needs to take a long time to bring to fruition, and that'll give your party plenty of opportunities to get in the way of it. In a lot of D&D lore, fire giants are craftsmen, as well as brutal warriors, and that makes sense. What has the power to both create and destroy in dramatic fashion, quite the same way fire does? But again, you can make him any kind of giant that you want. The plan that I would give Rylnor is for him to conspire to have the giants drawn into a conflict through the machinations of him and his secret accomplice. And when the fire giants are called on to join the battle, right on the front lines as they always have been, as is their duty, instead they show up with a weapon or weapons of incredible power and turn it against their own. Something they were never meant to have. Perhaps Rylnor wasn't powerful enough to create this without the help of his secret ally. Or maybe they use this weapon in an unexpected way. Either way, they're going to turn the tide of the battle into a tidal wave of giant blood. He wants to make a lifeless pile out of the quote-unquote more powerful giants and sit on top of it like a bloody throne. What kind of weapon would fit the bill? You could go crazy here with sentient siege engines or special weapons, bombs, all different kinds of things. In my adventure, I would make it a runic colossus. You can find the stat block for that big guy in Bigby's Glory of the Giants. A great book. If you're into giants, you got to get Bigby's Glory of the Giants. For a little perspective, fire giants are a challenge rating of 9. Storm giants, a 12. The runic colossus, a gargantuan construct of immutable form resistant to magical attacks. It's a CR of 21. That's enough to throw a 64-foot wrench into any situation. Imagine if Rylnor had perhaps managed to create more than one runic colossus. Why would your party care about this drama, and how might they find out? Perhaps whatever conspiracy you decided Rylnor was a part of puts them on the trail, and Rylnor's volcano is where the trail leads. Maybe the fire giants have been taking more slaves than usual to construct their colossus, or mining someplace unusual and disrupting other communities because they need a special substance to make their weapons. Wherever you pick to put Rylnor, you can be assured he's going to have a big impact. Our final villain is a world ender. I call Moshok. He's the big bad of my homebrew world, Felvrold. I've got a whole video introducing you to the setting of Felvrold if you want to check it out. Who is Moshok? Well, let me read you an ancient myth of Felvrold. There was, there is. There was sea and sky, mother and father. Their child was Teradin. Mother Sea gifted him creation. Father Sky, the fire of change. From the skull of a great seal, Teradin made an anvil. From her flesh he made his children, whom he loved, the race of giants. From the seal's ribs he built for them wild lands to rule in his glory. Giants of hill, frost, and fire, giants of stone and cloud. In his most perfect likeness he created giants of the storm. From the slag at Teradin's feet a seventh child was born, misshapen, unintended. Teradin, so enamored with his perfect creations, did not see the monster. Unknown, unwanted, the seventh child retreated to Mother Sea, who named him Moshok and pitied him. In her protection he grew strong and sly, his bitter heart full of rage for his father Teradin and the perfect children made in his image. There was great evil growing in the waters. That's a very flowery way to say that Moshok is a sea monster, terrible to behold, of near godlike powers and unimaginable size. He's your Jormungandr of Norse mythology, your biblical Leviathan. What does he want? Revenge on Teradin, the all-father figure, the leader of the gods who created him, then forgot him, who coddled and honored the giants, leaving Moshok to wander alone the cold, dark depths of the sea, unnoticed, unwanted. What is his nefarious plan? In my world, he wants to kill the gods. He'd like to start with his father, but he'll get to them all eventually. There's a sacred place where the giants, favorite children that they are, can commune directly with Teradin. They can step into this secret, hidden, hollowed space and feel his love, hear his commands. Moshok is searching for access to this place. If he can find it, if he can open the door to where Teradin resides, he'll have his revenge. What gifts do I give Moshok? What do you get the sea monster who has everything? Of course, I give him his unending rage. I give him intelligence and patience. There's something so creepy about villains with a lot of patience. He has enormous magical and physical power. I give him the ability to interfere with water anywhere. Your players think they're safe camping by that lake. He's going to possess a large creature that lives in there and attack them. They're passing by a creek. He's going to possess an enormous fish and make it flop out onto the bank and threaten the party in his voice. Gods forbid they try to take a bath in the wrong spot. I also give him an army of sea creatures to do his bidding. Some enormous legendary ones like kraken and dragon turtles to lay siege to Teradin's sacred space if he can find it. And smaller ones. The deep scion is a great stat block I love to use for this. In my world, whenever someone was drowned in the waters that Moshok inhabits, they're given a choice: die or serve him. If they choose to serve him, they come back as these deep scions. They're capable of disguising themselves as the people they once were. This allows them to deceive the party, follow the party, make them comfortable. And then on the turn of a fishy scale, they become tentacled sea assassins. This gives me a range of minions for Moshok that I can throw at a party at all different levels. Basically, any aquatic monster stat block could work. You have so much choice as a DM. The monster manual is your oyster, if you will. How does the party find out, and why do they care? At the beginning of my campaign, the party comes into possession of a MacGuffin. If you're not familiar with that term, a MacGuffin is an item that drives a story. It's the ring in The Lord of the Rings, the potion needed to save a dying princess. It's the thing in the story, the thing causing all the problems that everyone wants to get their hands on. In this case, the MacGuffin is a horn that belonged to the storm giants and that Moshok needs to get into his father's divine door. You can make it literally anything you like. The identity of the MacGuffin never really matters. It's just that it is somehow the key to all your villains' plans. Your party is perhaps tasked with taking this important object somewhere. They've cryptically been warned to avoid traveling over water. strange things start to happen. They find themselves pursued by fish people. Water is talking to them. Eventually, they learn about Moshok and his plans. To have a chance of defeating him, a god-adjacent sea monster large enough to circle their whole world. I mean, you can give him a stat block if you want. There are some good ones in Mythic Odyssey of Theros for really epic sea monsters. But in reality, he's something of a Tarrasque, beyond the power of even the most powerful adventurers. It's going to take a whole campaign of leveling up, hoarding magic items, and gathering some very dangerous allies to defeat this biggest of bads. Well, there you go. You got a little villain, a medium villain, and one that, wraps around the entire earth. As always, this is homebrew stuff, and it's possible that other similar things have been created by other people. My promise to you is I always let you know when I've borrowed ideas from somewhere and give credit where it's due. So thanks for your understanding with that. I want to thank all of you who have been interacting with the channel so much lately. I've had a couple of videos take off a little bit, and it's been lovely talking with you all, having you come by video premieres, leaving comments. I, again, love this community that we're starting to build. If you take any of these villains and unleash them in your worlds, please, please let me know. Let me know how it goes. I love hearing about that. Thank you, friends, as always, for exploring the feminine urge to play Dungeons & Dragons with me, Owlbear Rogue.